My family escaped from Afghanistan in the 70s when the Soviets invaded during the Cold War. Good education is paramount to any success. You can't really go anywhere unless you know what you're doing, unless you have the degree to back it up. And without going to university and getting that kind of a degree, no one is going to hire you. That's the biggest thing for them. That's all that I've been raised and trained to do, is to get the education, to get the grades, and come back with a good report card. People in my culture say that education is important, but in their actions, you can tell that they don't view it as important as it really is. A lot of the kids of my generation that come from Afghan descent aren't always the best students in their class, whereas their parents will say these things and they won't push their kids. So it really creates this kind of dichotomy between what is said and what is shown. And what they've shown is really important is their own culture. The importance in Afghan culture is representing Afghan culture, which is kind of backwards in its thinking, but it makes us feel a little bit better about ourselves, which we really shouldn't be doing.
My family comes from India. My parents moved here after getting married, and my dad went to college here in '86. I think having a good education is important because it opens up more doorways for you as you tend to look for careers or tend to look for purpose in your life, I guess. Traditionally in India, education is for the privileged few because, like, obviously the slum kids are not able to get a good education. However, for the ones that have access to education, it's highly valuable. So that's like a value that Indian children are taught, that if you do get an education, it's a very valuable thing. Back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a lot of Indians wanted to come to America because they felt that there was a lot of opportunities here. But ever since the change of the millennium, oftentimes Indians are going back to India because there are opportunities there as well now. So it's a mix of how it works. But for the most part, they feel that if you come to America, there is opportunity and there is a chance to go higher up in society.
I was born in Krakow, Poland, which is to the east of Germany and to the west of Russia. I moved when I was 2.5 years old, so in the late phase of 1996. Education, in essence, is the foundation of every person's standing in society. It's the education that defines how we approach our actions, how we determine the course in our life. And without a concrete education, it's very hard for us to determine what we truly want. Poland viewed America as an area of escape. Since early in the 90s and 92, Poland just got out of its communist state from the hold of Russia. And it was recuperating and becoming its own independent society and government. And that's the point where a lot of people did emigrate to the United States for the purpose of discovering what other countries with high potential they can influence on their own country. And that's why Poland really viewed the United States as an example and a sort of forefront of change. The reason I moved to the United States was a couple of years after college. My dad was going through numerous jobs, and one of his employers gave him the suggestion and opportunity to start a job on the East Coast of the United States. And seeing how things were slowly building back in Poland, my dad decided that that decision would be the best for us as a family. So he moved to the United States first, got settled with his job, and then 3 months later, my mom and we joined my dad in the United States.
I'm originally from Nigeria, West Africa. I was 13 when I moved to the United States. It was in October 2007. Well, I think it's important for me to be really as educated as I can get. My goal is to go to law school. That's going to require at least 4 years of study here and 2 years there. So I think it's really important. Well, I moved here because my mom got a job. She works at the University of Pittsburgh. And so my sister and I decided, or my parents decided, that it would be best if my sister and I came to study here in the United States. My mom is very adamant about me finishing school, and so is my dad. So, I mean, maybe they have ulterior motives, but they really want me to go to college and they really want me to be successful. So education is really important for them. In fact, growing up, one of the things that my mom was very adamant about was me going to a good college. She'd always be like, Asher, you're going to Harvard. And I was like, yeah, I will go to Harvard. And she was, to a degree, disappointed that I didn't get into any Ivy League schools. Happy that I got into NYU, but, she hoped for better things. And that is just a sign of how much she thinks education is important.
I was born in Tehran, Iran in 1956. Well, there is no other way of moving up in society without education, and that was obvious to my family even at that time in Iran, which was considered a third world country, that you needed education to get ahead and aspire for a better life. Oh, America was a dream for all of us, especially when I was being brought up I was born in 56, as I mentioned, in the 60s and, early 70s. America was, everything, through Hollywood, magic of Hollywood. We would see these movies and we would aspire to be like the Americans. They were all, dressed better in some cases, and they had better cars and they had better gadgets, and all the stories that we would hear about the people that would move into this country, even Cubans or people from other parts of Eastern Europe or even Western Europe, and they had come here and they had become millionaires. And so America was actually truly paradise in our view, and we would only see the best of the best through Life magazine or Time magazine, and we were not involved in the upheavals of the cultural differences in the 60s or the revolution because of Vietnam War. So we would see this pacified US as, wow, the place to be. So we were mesmerized by the idea of coming to this country and, getting educated, either staying here or for most of us, it was to go back. That was my plan. That was the plan for our family, that I would get educated and go back to Iran. But the month that I graduated from the university is when the revolution happened in Iran, and that basically changed all the plans. Education is the only thing in mankind that nobody can take away from you. You can be the highest of kings, and there's a revolution and you lose your spot, but they can never take education away. You can go bankrupt and lose your money, but again, education stays with you.
ما در ایران در شهر همدان به دنیا آمدم، در مرایر بزرگ شدم و بعد از تینیجر بودم که اومدم تهران. خیلی مهمه برای اینکه کاملا به خصوص برای ایران اگه کسی بخواست کار بکنه، مهمتر از همه این بود که بگن تحصیل کرده در اروپا یا به خصوص در امریکا. ما احساس دوری میکردیم، ناراحت بودیم، ولی در درونمون خوشحال بودیم که وقتی که پسرمون برمیگرده با موقعیت خیلی خیلی بهتر و تحصیل بهتری میاد. دلم میخواست و من وقتی که اومدم از شهر خودمون به تهران، وقتی بود که متاسفانه پدر من ورشکست شده بود و ما بدهکاری پدرمون رو داشتیم. بنابراین من این شانس برام نبود که به دانشگاه برم. تنها کاری که تونستم بکنم، چون تا در ملایر تا کلاس 9 من خونده بودم اینجا، شب میرفتم تحصیل میکردم و روز کار میکردم و بالاخره به اون وسیله تونستم دیپلم خودمو بگیرم. حتما بره تحصیلات چه بکنه و دیگری داشته باشه و هر که تحصیلات بهتر بکنه بهتر و بهتر میتونه موفق باشه در آیندهش. به خصوص کسی که در امریکا تحصیل بکنه، خب نسبت به کشورهای دیگه هم اطلاعات بیشتری داره.